After my husband lost his job, I paid all the bills. But his sister still called me a useless leech and threw my belongings into the street. My husband just watched and said, "You deserve that." As I picked up my clothes in tears, I whispered, "Let me show you what I really deserve." I'm Dana, 41, from Indianapolis. I've been married to Greg for 14 years. We met when I was in my mid-20s. I was working the register at Kohl's and Greg worked a few blocks away at Best Buy. He came in to buy some khakis one day and started chatting with me in line. He was charming, funny, kind of dorky in a cute way. I liked him right away. 2 weeks later, we had our first date. Things moved fast. We moved in together after a year and got married the next. At the time, we both worked long hours, didn't have much money, but we had each other. That was enough. Or I thought it was. Greg had one big flaw from the start: his sister Sierra. I don't say this lightly, but she's one of the nastiest, loudest, most disrespectful people I've ever met. I tried for years to understand her. Maybe she had some deep trauma. Maybe she was jealous. Maybe she just hated me for no reason. Sierra always looked at me like I was invading her turf. At our wedding, she made a speech that was more about Greg and her childhood than anything to do with me. She joked in front of everyone that I trapped him. She wore a white dress, and she knew exactly what she was doing. Greg never stood up to her. "That's just how she is," he'd say. "She means well." I let a lot of things slide because of that excuse. For too long. Fast forward to last year. Greg lost his job. He was working at a car parts warehouse doing logistics. After some layoffs, he came home one Friday with a pink slip and a dead look in his eyes. I felt bad for him. I comforted him. Told him we'd get through it. And we would have. If he had actually tried. At first, he applied to a few jobs. But after a few weeks, he stopped. He said he was burned out. I tried to be supportive. I picked up extra shifts at the medical clinic where I work in billing. I made sure the rent was paid, car insurance, groceries, all of it. I even made him coffee every morning like always. But Greg didn't bounce back. He started sleeping in until 11, playing games late at night. He became rude. Snappy. It was like he was waiting for me to fail. Like he resented me for stepping up. Then Sierra started showing up more. At first, it was once a week. Then 3 times. Then she basically became a roommate. She'd sit in our living room, watching TV, eating my food, calling me names under her breath. I came home one day to find her in my bathrobe. Another time, she was using my laptop. I told Greg I was uncomfortable. His response? "She's family. She's going through stuff." I asked what kind of stuff. He shrugged. Another time, I heard her say, "Dana doesn't deserve you. She doesn't do anything." I was in the hallway, and she didn't even bother whispering. I walked in and asked her to repeat herself. She smiled and said, "Just girl talk." Greg said nothing. One Friday, I got home late. I was tired. My back hurt. My feet were swollen from standing all day. I walked in the door, and Sierra was there with trash bags. My stuff. My clothes. My shoes. Makeup. Thrown into black plastic bags like garbage. I asked what the hell she was doing. Sierra said, "You've been freeloading off my brother long enough. It's time you go." I looked at Greg. He stood behind her. Arms crossed. No emotion on his face. "Are you going to say anything?" I asked him. His mouth twitched. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "You deserve that." Like it was nothing. I felt my legs go numb. I walked outside. The bags were in the yard. Torn open. My underwear in the grass. My makeup kit cracked open in the street. Some neighbors were watching. One guy across the street even took a video on his phone. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Not yet. I got on my knees and started picking up what I could. And that's when I whispered it to myself. "Let me show you what I really deserve." I left. I didn't look back. I drove to my friend Tasha's place across town. She opened the door and didn't even ask questions. Just hugged me. I stayed on her couch. The first night, I cried so hard I threw up. The second night, I didn't sleep. But by the third night, I was done crying. I was angry. I didn't just want to leave Greg. I wanted him to feel what I felt. So I got to work. Every bill we had was in my name. Rent, water, power, internet. Greg hadn't contributed in months. So I called each company and canceled everything. I gave proper notice where needed. I wasn't trying to destroy his life. Not directly. But I wasn't going to pay one more cent. I called our landlord and told him I was moving out. I made sure to ask for the deposit refund to come to my new address. I let them know Greg could stay if he wanted, but I wouldn't be on the lease anymore. Then I removed Greg from my job's health insurance. He'd been using it for therapy sessions. I called HR and updated my marital status. He got dropped by the end of the month. I also deleted his resumes off our shared cloud storage. They were all saved drafts. He had no copies. Petty? Maybe. But after everything, I didn't care. Then I got a small apartment in a quieter area. 1 bedroom. Clean. I furnished it slowly. Piece by piece. My name was the only one on the lease. The silence was strange at first. But I started to feel peace again. I got a lawyer next. Not a cheap one, but worth it. I had proof of every bill I paid. Every paycheck. Every Venmo transaction to cover groceries, utilities, insurance. When Greg got served, he didn't take it well. He left me 5 voicemails in a row. The third one was him crying. The 5th was him screaming that I ruined everything. I didn't answer. Sierra sent an email saying I had no right to break the family apart. That I wasn't strong enough to be a wife. I printed it and gave it to my lawyer. On our first court day, Greg came alone. No lawyer. Just a folder and a sad face. The judge didn't even need much time. I was awarded full financial control over the split. Greg got nothing. I walked past him in the hallway after. He tried to talk to me. I didn't stop walking. Then came the final twist. A month after the divorce, I saw Greg at the Kroger near my new place. He looked awful. Thinner. Eyes sunken. He was buying cheap beer and frozen dinners. When he saw me, he looked scared. Like I was a ghost. I just said, "This is what I deserved," and walked past him. And now here I am. I'm not finished with this story yet. Not completely. Because something else happened after that. And it's even worse than what you just read. I'll share that next. I thought that seeing Greg at the grocery store would be the last time I'd ever have to deal with him or his sister. But I was wrong. 2 weeks after that run-in, I got a letter in the mail. It was from a lawyer. Greg was trying to file for spousal support. Yeah. You read that right. After I paid all the bills, after he let his sister throw me out like garbage, after I walked away with nothing but what I could carry in trash bags, he wanted me to pay him money every month. I laughed when I first read it. But it wasn't funny. It was serious. He claimed that because we'd been married over 10 years and because he was financially dependent, he deserved support while he rebuilds his career. The part that made my blood boil? In the documents, he said I abandoned the marriage. Abandoned? I gave that man years of my life. I paid the bills when he was jobless. I begged him to get help. And when his sister dragged my belongings onto the street, he stood by and let it happen. That wasn't abandonment. That was survival. I called my lawyer immediately. She was calm, but firm. "We'll handle it," she said. "But this isn't uncommon. Some men try this after they lose control." It made me sick. I had to gather even more documents. Pay stubs. Proof of his unemployment. Screenshots of texts showing he wasn't applying for jobs. Emails he sent me after the split, full of anger and blame. Even messages from Sierra, mocking me. It was exhausting. But I wasn't alone anymore. Tasha stood by me. My coworkers at the clinic were supportive. I didn't tell them every detail, but they could tell I'd been through hell. One even slipped me a Starbucks gift card and said, "You're stronger than you think." That meant more than she knew. 3 weeks later, we went to court again. Greg actually showed up with a lawyer this time. A cheap one. The kind who calls women honey, in court. Greg sat across from me, wearing the same wrinkled suit as before. His eyes looked dull. Tired. But not sorry. He looked like a man who was angry the game didn't go his way. His lawyer argued that Greg was emotionally traumatized by the divorce. That I cut him off financially. And left him stranded. My lawyer stood up and calmly handed the judge a thick folder. Inside, proof of every rent payment I made. Bank statements. Photos of the apartment I paid for alone. Texts where Greg told me to shut up and deal with it when I asked him to apply for jobs. Voicemails where he screamed that I ruined his life. The judge flipped through the folder. He didn't say much. Just nodded slowly. Then he looked at Greg. "You're asking for support from someone you didn't support emotionally or financially. That's not how this works." Request denied. I walked out of that courtroom with my head held high. But again, it wasn't over. That same night, Sierra showed up at my apartment. Yeah. She found out where I lived. I heard the buzzer go off and answered through the intercom. Who is it? It's Sierra. I froze. What do you want? I asked. She said. Just talk to me. 1 minute. I should have hung up. I should have called the cops. But I was tired of being scared. So I went down. She stood there on the front steps in a leather jacket and tight jeans, like she was starring in some cheap drama. Her eyes were red. I couldn't tell if it was from crying or rage. You think you won? She snapped. I crossed my arms. I don't think anything. I know what I lived through. And I walked away. She laughed. Greg's broken. He's not eating. He's barely talking. He stares at the wall all day. I didn't say anything. You did that, she said, stepping closer. You made him into that. No, I said. You did. You and him. I just walked away from the mess you both made. She opened her mouth to say something else, but I cut her off. Go home, Sierra. Or I will call the cops. She stared at me for a few seconds. Then she did something that shook me. She smiled. And said, You think this is over? You're not done paying for what you did. Then she walked off. I didn't sleep that night. I checked the locks twice. Closed every curtain. Sat on the couch with a baseball bat nearby like I was waiting for something to happen. I didn't know what. But something was coming. I could feel it. And I was right. Because the next morning, I found out someone had slashed my tires. 4 of them. Not 1. Not 2. All 4. Knife marks clear as day. And on my windshield in red marker, Leech. I stared at that word for a long time. And then I called the police. They came. Took a report. Asked if I had any enemies. I gave them 2 names. Greg. And Sierra. No cameras caught anything. No witnesses. But I knew. I knew it was one of them. Maybe both. And just like that, the game had changed again. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was war. After the cops left, I sat in my car, staring at the word Leech written across my windshield. It felt like a slap. Not because it was true, it wasn't. But because someone went out of their way to call me that. To try to break me. Again. I had to take the day off work. I couldn't drive, and I was shaking too much to think clearly anyway. My boss was understanding, but I could hear the worry in her voice. Do you feel safe? She asked. No, I said honestly. But I will. I got the tires replaced that weekend. All 4. It cost more than I had planned for, and I had to dip into my savings, but I wasn't going to let them stop me from living my life. That Monday, something strange happened. I got a phone call from a blocked number. I don't usually answer those, but something told me to pick it up. It was Sierra's ex-boyfriend. His name was Troy. We'd only met once, years ago, at a family barbecue. At the time, he seemed quiet, maybe even a little scared of Sierra. Now I understood why. I know this is weird, he said. But I heard what's been going on with you and Greg. And with Sierra. Okay, I said, cautious. He sighed. I left her 2 years ago. Best decision I ever made. But she's not over it. She's angry all the time, obsessed with control. I heard from a friend that she's been talking about you. Bragging, actually. I didn't say anything. I just let him talk. She said you ruined Greg? That she's going to make you pay for what happened. She even mentioned finding your new address. I thought she was bluffing, but I guess not. She slashed my tires, I said. He went quiet. Then, that sounds like her. She keyed my car once. Broke my phone. She has this thing where, if she can't control someone, she destroys them. I asked him why he was warning me. Because no one warned me, he said. And I almost lost everything. I thanked him. He gave me his number in case I needed a statement for the police, and then we hung up. Something shifted in me after that call. I'd been reacting up until that point, defending, escaping, protecting myself. But now I had information. Now I had leverage. And I was going to use it. A few days later, I drove to the warehouse where Greg used to work. I still had contacts there. I used to bring him lunch during breaks, and I'd gotten to know a few people over the years. One of them was a woman named Rachel, who worked in HR. She was surprised to see me, but kind. I heard about the split, she said gently. Yeah, I said. It's been ugly. She nodded. Greg hasn't been in touch since he got let go. We mailed his final paperwork, but he never responded. I took a deep breath. I need a favor. Or maybe just the truth. Did Greg get severance? Unemployment? Anything? Rachel pulled up some files and scrolled for a minute. Then she said, yes. He got a severance check. 3 months' worth of pay. And he applied for unemployment. My heart sank. He never told me. While I was working overtime to keep us fed, Greg was sitting on a check. He didn't even use it to help. I was paying for everything while he had money hidden away. I asked Rachel for a copy of the basic severance form, not any confidential info, just something to prove it existed. She agreed. Now I had another piece of the puzzle. Greg hadn't just been lazy. He'd been lying. Hiding things. Manipulating me. I thought it might be time to press charges for the vandalism. Or at least go back to the police with more to support my claim. But first, I wanted to make one more stop. I drove to Sierra's place. No, not to confront her directly. I wasn't stupid. I parked across the street and waited. And after about 20 minutes, I saw her come out. She was laughing on the phone and holding a box. She put it in her trunk and drove off. When she was gone, I walked across the street. Her apartment building had security cameras. I'd already scoped that out the day before. So I walked into the leasing office and asked to speak to the manager. I told them someone had damaged my car and I had reason to believe it was done by someone living in the building. I showed them a copy of the police report. They hesitated, but eventually agreed to review the footage from the night of the tire slashing. 2 days later, I got a call. They saw her. Clear as day. 1:47 a.m. Sierra. Hoodie. Knife in hand. My tires. They turned the footage over to the police. Now I had what I needed. But something told me to wait. Just a little longer. Because what I had planned next wasn't just about getting even. It was about ending this. For good. The police came to my apartment 2 days after they got the video footage from Sierra's building. They asked me to come down to the station and give a formal statement. I brought everything I had, photos of the damage, screenshots of the texts and emails from Sierra, Greg's voicemails, the police report, even a signed note from the property manager where her building turned over the footage. The detective I met with was a younger guy, maybe early 30s. He took one look at the video stills and said, "Yeah, that's more than enough." Sierra was arrested the next day. They picked her up at her apartment in the middle of the afternoon. She had no idea it was coming. Someone filmed it and posted it to a neighborhood Facebook group, her yelling, trying to fight the officers, calling them pigs and saying they'd regret it. She screamed that she wasn't done yet. That part chilled me. But it was also the last time she had any power. They charged her with vandalism, criminal mischief, and trespassing. It wasn't jail for life stuff, but it was enough to go on her record. Her job found out. She worked at a dental office as a receptionist. She got fired the same week. Turns out people don't want a front desk person who's out slashing tires and threatening ex-sisters-in-law. Her mugshot made it to a local news feed. Someone sent it to me. I saved it. Not to laugh at. Just to remember. The day she got out on bail, she messaged me through a fake Facebook account. "I hope you're happy," she wrote. "You destroyed everything." I didn't reply. I just screenshotted it and sent it to the detective. He added it to the case file and warned her through her lawyer that any more messages would lead to more charges. That was the last I heard from her. But I wasn't done yet. I turned my attention back to Greg. The severance pay. The unemployment checks. The lies. I dug through every document from the divorce and realized something. Greg had never disclosed the money he got from his old job. In fact, during the divorce hearing, he swore under oath that he had no income during those months. That was perjury. I went back to my lawyer and gave her the severance document Rachel from HR had printed. I also pulled Greg's unemployment claim info. He'd signed up using our old shared email, and he never bothered to change the password. My lawyer took it all and filed a motion with the court. Greg was called back to court a month later. This time, he looked worse than before. He had a black eye, a busted lip, and he was limping. I later found out he'd gotten into a bar fight. Someone said he mouthed off, got punched, and had to crawl out of the place. Karma. The judge wasn't playing games this time. When my lawyer laid out the timeline, the severance pay, the active unemployment account, and matched it against the dates Greg claimed, no income, in court, the judge leaned back and said, "Mr. Baxter, do you understand what perjury means?" Greg stuttered. Tried to say he forgot, and that it all happened so fast. Didn't matter. The judge ordered him to repay the court for wasting time and ordered sanctions. He also reopened the financial settlement, which meant I could go after part of the severance money, even months later, because he had hidden it during proceedings. And we did. Within 6 weeks, my lawyer got a lien on Greg's car. The one I paid half for but let him keep. It was repossessed. He tried to fight it, but he had no money for a new lawyer. And that cheap one from earlier? He dropped Greg after the sanctions hit. I got a check from the sale of the car. Not much. But more than nothing. The final blow? I found out Greg had moved in with a guy he barely knew. A roommate situation desperate. The guy eventually kicked him out because Greg wasn't paying rent and ate everything in the fridge. I didn't laugh. Not out loud. But inside? Yeah. I felt it. Now I know some people reading this might wonder if I came out of this perfect. I didn't. I learned that I ignored red flags for too long. I made excuses for someone who didn't deserve them. I stayed quiet when I should have spoken up. I lost years of my life to a man who couldn't even defend me when his sister humiliated me in public. I paid the price. But I also made it out. I got therapy. Real therapy. I sat in a room with a woman who didn't sugarcoat anything and told me, "You weren't loved. You were used." That hurt. But it also woke me up. I stopped shrinking myself to make other people feel bigger. I learned to say no. I started living for me again. I've been in my new place for 5 months now. I planted flowers on the small balcony. Bought a record player. Got a dog, his name's Moose, he's lazy, big, and sleeps on my feet every night. Greg and Sierra? I don't know where they are. And I don't care. Because I'm here. Alive. Free. And finally, respected, by the one person who should have respected me from the beginning.